Tank Dell says the two words. Case Keenum has a bold claim, and I have a theory about both of these guys as training camp approaches. Let's go inside the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room.
Tank Dell, been a wild offseason for Tank Dell. Was a really exciting rookie season before it ended with an injury. He said the two words that a lot of people might be scared to say. And Case Keenum, who I have a theory about that I could connect him to Tank Dell. He had some interesting things to say as well. Aaron Wilson, KPRC, was on the scene as he always is at these types of events. Let's just get right into it and talk about Tank Dell, the second-year wide receiver, coming off a season that was cut short by the injury. Had two injuries last year, actually, and then had the scare off the field, the incident at the late night gathering. He's good to go. He's running full speed. He was at his camp. Aaron Wilson was on the scene, and Tank Dell, he threw those two words out there that many are scared to say.
Training camp is going to play a big factor, but I'm trying to get ready for the season, so I'm doing everything.
It starts early, and for you guys, you want to hit the ground running. What's the vibe around the team? Because I know there's a lot of excitement. People are talking about the Texans now and talking about them in a good way.
Yeah, like I said, we ready. We all excited. We have a target on our back. We got a lot of things that we want to accomplish, Super Bowl, playoffs, things like that. So we ready to go work.
All right, Super Bowl. And that's not the first time that Tank Dell has said that. You've heard him say that on $1 million worth of game. You've heard him say it for a while. I mean, it's one of those things that when you've never been to an AFC championship game like the Texans never have, when a few bounces last year could have prevented you from going to the playoffs, a lot of people get scared to say. But, I mean, you saw Joe Burrow in his second year. He took the Bengals damn near to winning a Super Bowl, and it happens quite often, especially if you have the quarterback, especially if you have the weapons, especially if you have the head coach. And Tank Dell is one of those many weapons. And there are a couple of things that we know about Tank Dell, and there's one thing that we don't know that I'll get to in a sec. But first, let's hear from Case Keenum. I think Case Keenum might be exaggerating here. I love Case. I actually have a theory about Case at the end of this video, but there's no one more fun to talk to around here than Case Keenum. But this is a pretty bold claim. I might have to throw the challenge flag on this one.
First of all, just to watch Tank run routes, I have them saved in my phone. I just pull them up every now and then when I'm bored and want to watch them.
Come on, Case. You're pulling out Tank Dell route running in your spare time. Look at
Give all the guys a little boost. Watch him doing his thing again.
Come on, man.
First of all, just to watch Tank run routes, I have them saved in my phone. I just pull them up every now and then when I'm bored and want to watch some great route running. So to see him back out there doing it live and in person, a second year where he's not worried about where he's lining up and what the play is.
I think that's an interesting theory. I think Case Keenum would be able to relate to that. We'll go back to Case in a sec. But watching routes in your spare time, come on, Case. I know you're a little bit older. You're not getting down like that. You're not partying like that. But this offense, I thought this was a good point. I credit Seth Payne with it. This offense and this learning adjustment for someone coming out of the offense that Tank Dell came out, it was significant. And we eventually saw him hit the ground running. Week 3 against Jacksonville was where we really saw him start to find his groove. But I do think that's an interesting thing, and I think Case Keenum knows very well about that, whether he is or isn't just whipping out his phone.
He's really working his craft, and he's got some great guys to learn from, too, with, Stefon, Robert, Nico, Noah. It's a really good quarterback receiver room, and I'm excited to watch those guys compete.
Yeah, I think we all are. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting wide receiver room. And Tank Dell's perhaps the most interesting of all of them. Nico Collins, the most successful last year. Heading into last year, you're wondering, could he stay healthy? He stays healthy. You bring in Stefon Diggs in the three-way trade that it basically ended up being trading back 19 spots, getting the second, throwing the second to Buffalo, and getting Diggs. And Tank Dell seems to be the most popular one. I don't know if it's the local stuff. I said last year when the Texans drafted Tank Dell that even if he stinks, he was going to be one of those camp darlings because it's a Cougs city and there's a lot of Coug fans. But when you watched him play, and look, we were right here. We've been here since the start of the 2022 season. We talked about who was the best wide receiver when Tank was playing and Nico was playing, and it changed from week to week a couple of times. And if he can get back on the field and do his thing, then it's only going to get more exciting. And you got him under contract for 3 more years, a very, very cheap contract. There's 2 things we do know about Tank Dell, and it is the locker room. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along. I have a theory about Case Keenum that I'm going to throw y'all's way that could connect him to Tank Dell. We talked about him being around 3 years. But 2 things we know about Tank Dell. Number one, we know he can ball when he's on the field with CJ Stroud. And there's a lot of times where they can go off script and get him involved. And number 2, we know him and CJ Stroud are tight. And they're really, really good friends. What does that mean? I don't know. But it's clearly his best friend on the team. He's taking him on $1 million worth of games. So there's on-field chemistry and there's off-field chemistry. What do those 2 things look like? That's going to be one of the more intriguing things in this very intriguing wide receiver room, which Case Keenum just mentioned. Now, there is one thing we don't know about Tank Dell, and this is a small sample size, and I'm not saying this to be unfair, but the biggest amount of skepticism or concern for Tank Dell when he was coming into the league was the size. Can he stay healthy? Is he going to be able to stay on the field? We saw him injured twice last year. One of them, he was going across the field against Atlanta. I think at the end of the second quarter, he landed on his head. Went out of that game and he missed the next game as well. And then we saw him in the game where he was blocking and ended up against Denver and ended up getting rolled on. A lot of people critical that he was even in that position. I'm not one of those, but we do got to see if Tank Dell, because we only have a small sample size, we do got to see if Tank Dell is going to be able to stay on the field, protect himself. That's the one thing. But when you have this much depth at wide receiver and you brought in Stefon Diggs, who Case Keenum knows very well, you feel like you're in pretty good position no matter what happens, even if the natural adversity of football occurs. Let's hear Case Keenum. He's been involved with Stefon Diggs on one of the most exciting plays in the history of Minnesota football. Let's hear Case Keenum. He says that he watches Tank Dell videos in his free time on his phone. Let's hear Case Keenum talking about his former teammate, Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, it's really cool to get back out there and to see Stefon on the practice field and to watch him just absolutely do some dirty things with some routes that I haven't seen anybody else be able to do. He's a dynamic player, and he has not lost a step. If anything, he's got more savviness with some stuff that he could put some extra sauce on some routes when he needs to, but when there's not time to take patience, he's got to go right now. So he's done a great job of continuing to build his craft and work his tool set. So I'm excited to see what he can do in the fall.
I'm excited too. I think we're all excited about the wide receiver, specifically Tank Dell. I have a theory. I've been throwing this out there. One of the things, the inevitable obstacles that the Texans are going to have to overcome, which many teams have overcome, is eventually Bobby Slowick and or Gerard Johnson is going to leave. They're going to leave that quarterback room with CJ Stroud. Whether it's one, whether it's both, eventually it's inevitable that that's going to happen if CJ is going to continue to play like this. We saw Slowick get coaching interviews last year. Gerard Johnson was praised significantly at some conventions. Hell, I could see Gerard getting head coaching interviews next year as well. My theory is this, though. I think Case Keenum, I don't think he's going to be able to walk away from football. I think he loves the state of Texas. I think he loves the city of Houston. I think he knows this system. I think he's basically essentially another coach for CJ Stroud and Bobby Slowick. I think he's a good set of eyes. I think that's why he started against the Tennessee Titans. And we saw some of those things play out, the will, the smarts, all that. I think Case Keenum, it would not shock me if when those guys leave, once Case hangs it up, if he's not a member of this coaching staff, whether it's a quick execution to or a quick jump to quarterback coach, if he's working with the receivers or something, you hear him. Apparently he watches routes in his spare time. I think that there's a chance that Tank Dell and Case Keenum and Nico Collins will be here for a long, long time. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. Hard for me to imagine him not wanting to coach. Hard for me to imagine the guys, with the way they talk about him in that locker room, not welcoming him to coach here. Speaking of locker rooms, thanks for coming through. Subscribe, like, ride along. Camp's going to be fun, going to be on the field, going to be in the mix, going to be in the action. I got a lot of other stuff cooking up for when the season starts. Better days are ahead. What a great time to be alive. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room.